Hey now, it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm going solo on that ass, but it's still the same. We're talking TNA wrestling, and we got a few stories to get into before we get into the TNA Impact recap. Not a ton of news, but we do have a little bit. The last couple weeks have been a little bit tough, so in pro wrestling in general, to be honest with you, I have been really struggling to come up with stuff to talk about. It can be difficult at times, but that's why I'll be on like the Mike and JD show last week on Thursday. I was struggling to find interesting topics. I was like, oh man, this show's gonna die this week, and then JD just all of a sudden couldn't go. So we pushed it back to Friday night, and thankfully that was the Tyson Paul fight. I was like, finally, I have something to talk about. And then finally, thankfully the Observer was out, and he had a couple stories in the Observer, and the Hall of Fame issue was out, so we were able to talk about stuff there. But man, in pro wrestling these days, there's just not a ton of interesting stuff going on. There were episodes of the Mike and JD show and of this podcast where I was like, I had too much to talk about. I had to divide it up over a couple of shows, but not these days, man. We're struggling to find content, and that's that's a bit disappointing, but it is what it is. But I want to go with, this is the top story for me this week. And I do want to get into Speedball. I want to get into Josh Alexander and a couple of other things. And then, of course, if you guys are in the chat, you guys want to toss some topics my way, we can hit those too. But TNA Impact was we got ratings news about TNA Impact this week. Now this is from Jedi Goodman, and then of course there was a thread on Reddit that actually had some even more in-depth ratings information. The problem is I have been spending the last hour or so trying to validate these ratings because people are using Spoiler TV as a source, but I tried to access the Spoiler TV site. I messaged the guy who runs that site. I don't see numbers anywhere. When you run a search for TNA Impact, nothing comes up. So there's a way to get the ratings. I just don't know how any of these people are doing it, but people are using Spoiler TV as a source. So I have not been able to independently verify these ratings. I've not been able to validate the ratings. Brandon Thurston doesn't have them on WrestleNomics. So there's a Reddit thread, and then of course Jedi Goodman on Twitter. Jedi Goodman, he gets it, but he doesn't actually post what his source is. But he's been posting the numbers. Every time the numbers come out, he actually publishes them. So I don't know where any of this stuff's coming from, to be honest with you. So I wanted to just throw that out there. It's very possible that none of this is true, just because I haven't been able to validate it. But the numbers sound correct. Okay, they sound correct. So when it's if it sounds correct, I guess I'll just go with it. I don't know, man. I just don't know what to make of any of this stuff. But this week's TNA Impact on Access TV netted 99,000 viewers. And it's a 0.02 in the demo, and that is pretty rare for them to actually be listed. And I'll be honest, it's so rare. I quit paying attention to TNA Impact ratings because they were just never getting posted. But apparently, and what I think I'll do is I will actually post I'll actually post a picture, because 2 weeks ago they were last week, according to a Redditor who says he got it from Spoiler TV Plus, a website that I am actively trying to get a hold of because I just can't seem to make it on there. And my buddy Io sent this to me. So I'm going to go ahead and post that here. So apparently, let's see. Apparently last week they had 108,000 total viewers. So last week's episode actually did better than this week's episode. And then 2 weeks ago, they were at 85,000 total viewers, and they were number 97 in the top 100, which is wild to me to have 85,000. But if you're 0.02, they got all the way up to number 97 in the top 150. Now this one has like a fancy chart, like they took a screenshot of the chart. I just don't know where they say the STV plus there. STV plus stands for Spoiler TV Plus. I tried to get on the site this morning. I've been trying for an hour. It's just like, and it's 6 a.m. So I got up like really early to get this information for everybody. But that it says that is out there. So we have ratings for 3 weeks in a row, which is pretty rare for TNA to even have ratings information out there. Like I said, I stopped talking about their TV ratings because they were just so irrelevant. Io is in the house. What's up, Io? I was just using that chart you sent me from Reddit that had the ratings information for last week and then the week before. The problem is I don't know the source material that those people are using. Like they say Spoiler TV Plus. I just don't know if that's true or not. But we'll go with it. So we got 3 weeks in a row of ratings, and I think we got IO. If anybody can correct me in the chat, I would greatly appreciate it. Where were they ranked this week? I thought they were number 99 this week. Hold on just a sec. Okay. I want to double check that. So Jedi Goodman did not say that they were in the top 100. He just said that they had 99,000 viewers with a 0.02 rating. He didn't really say what the ranking was. And he also didn't say where he got the source material. Look at BQ in the house. What's up, BQ, my man? Hold on. Everybody, you guys want to know why BQ is actually in the house right now? Because I put Alicia Edwards on the thumbnail. That was BQ bait. I was baiting in BQ to take part of the show. I had to put Alicia on the cover. And I'll get into why. I'll get into the real reason why I put Alicia on the cover. Once we get to the recap. So anyway, so if you guys are keeping score, 2 weeks ago, 85,000, number 97 in the top 100. Last week, 108,000, and then this week, 99,000. That is like for them to even be ranked in the top 150, or then to even have the ratings information out there, and that for them to be hovering around 100,000 is a little bit surprising to me, because I thought that they were like so dead in the water when it came to ratings, because we just never got any info. They're kind of starting to make a little bit of a comeback with the ratings. It also tells me that there's not a whole lot on TV right now that's actually making any headway. So that's good news for TNA. The momentum for TNA is there. Can they capitalize on it? I don't know. We gotta, we have had faith in this company before, and they have let us down. Every time we think they're about to go big, they don't. But man, the signs are there. The momentum is there. It's kind of all there for them to make a little bit of a run here, and possibly get themselves back in the fight, I would say, because people typically don't take TNA seriously. They lose a lot of their talent to the big leagues. They can't even compete with them a lot of times. They're hardly ever in the newsletters, and when they are, it's typically negative stuff, or unless there's data out there. Dave Meltzer's not even watching their pay-per-views to rate their matches. It's tough. It's tough for them to gain a foothold. The media doesn't really care about them, which is why this show exists, and which is why the Impact Lounge is so important, because we're the only ones really covering it the way that we are. There's a couple of like fan podcasts out there, but there's only really 2 podcasts that are providing critical analysis of what TNA is up to. Now, I go more into the weeds than anybody else because BQ likes to say Mike is a mark like a motherfucker, which is true. Because I like the inside in the weeds. I like to do data analysis. I like to do ticket sales information. I like to do pay-per-view buys and things like that. That interests me a lot, and I like to bring that to you guys and I like tables and charts and all that stuff because that's like my specialty at work. So, yeah, I like continuous process improvement. I need data points, right? And I need to find out what we're not good at, and then I need to spark ideas to then incrementally grow those numbers over time, right? That's where my brain goes. And to not have this ratings information is really annoyed me for a long time, because that's one data point to be able to look at, to say, hey, this is down, and here's a possibility as to why, and here's what we need to do to get back up. That is one data point. Another data point to show whether or not a company is successful, and probably the most important data point for this company, is ticket sales. And ticket sales have been up, but it wasn't really reflecting in the TV ratings, the popularity, right? But it is now, because we got 3 weeks in a row where we actually have numbers, where they're actually doing something. And people could tell me like, hey, Mike, these numbers aren't that big. You're right. But for a TV show on Access TV, it's huge, right? For a TV on Access TV, it is huge for them to be able to do that. 100,000 viewers on Access TV is like 250,000 viewers like for them for like another network, right? Maybe like 300. Like if they were on a bigger one like TNT, TBS, USA, something like that, they could probably get like 250 to 300,000 viewers, because people just have access to the station. Right now, nobody has access to Access. It doesn't exist, and it's a terrible station. In fact, this week they made a huge error during the show. Tells you that they're not taking their own business seriously. It's not a serious station. So, and IO brings up a good point. Imagine the subs too. So, a lot of people watch on TNA Plus, and that's typically how I watch. But I watched the show. I watched the show this week. I started to. So I have a gym in my garage. I converted the garage into like the Gilbert Fitness Center, right? And a couple weeks ago, I actually so when you're on a military base, a lot of people just give shit away because we're moving so often and they don't want to take stuff. And somebody was getting rid of I think it's like a 43 or 45-inch TV, right? And they said they'll get rid of it for like $40. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I just want to put it in my garage. So I went and got the TV, and I bought like a cheap mount for it, and I had to get a new remote for it. And I set it up in my garage, and I have this way to watch TV called IPTV, Internet Protocol Television, where I can get any channel anywhere at any time, right? And that's how I watch the UFC pay-per-views. I'm kind of outing myself right now, so hopefully the FBI is not watching. Maybe I'll edit this out of the YouTube. But so this week, and the reason why I put that on is because I can do split screen. So when you're watching football on Amazon Prime, you're stuck in that app. You can't change channels back and forth. And when you're the same rule applies to TNA Plus. When you're pulling up TNA Impact, you're in that app. You can't watch anything else at the same time unless you pull up another set, like another TV set. So, but on IPTV, it has access to the live Amazon Prime. So I could watch the Amazon Prime feed on that service. And then I was able to pull up Access TV, and I did a split screen deal. I posted the picture on Twitter, because I wanted to watch I knew that there was going to be snow in the Browns and Steelers game, and Mike Tomlin has trouble beating division opponents on Thursday nights, and the Steelers were really good. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. This is a good storyline. So, and it turns out the Browns ended up winning, and it was fucking like a bunch of snow. So I wanted to watch that. So I had that on, and then on the split screen, I had TNA Impact on, but I had the audio for Impact, and then at the same time, I'm working out. So I'm like killing three birds right at the same time, which is very masculine of me to do that, by the way. I'm in the gym, and no, I don't even remember what body part I worked on Thursday. Oh yeah, it was the arms, bis and tris. So which allows me to focus more on the television, because I could just set up the dumbbells and stuff right in front of the TV, and I can just hit the curls, and I'm not missing anything. So anyway, I'm doing that. I did the split screen. Now I'm not adding to the ratings, because the way that I'm watching is not being tracked by anyone, except for, like I said, maybe the FBI. So the momentum for the company is there. TV ratings are now up, right? They're now up. They're not significantly up, but they're up. Okay. Ticket sales all year have been up. And in 2024, by far, pay-per-view buys are the best that they have been since Anthem has purchased the company. By far, 100%. Hard to Kill is their all-time record for TNA, pre and post Anthem, according to Dave Meltzer's estimations. Now, again, we don't have the real numbers. We're relying on Dave Meltzer's estimations, and he's the only one that gets access to that data. Okay, so what he does is he pulls information from different traditional cable systems, and then he estimates once he gets those numbers, and then he does an estimation based off of historical data for what streaming buys would be. It could not be completely accurate, but that's all the numbers we have, because TNA doesn't release the numbers. They're not going to tell us how many buys they had, which is a shame. I think they should just publish the numbers. But TNA, Hard to Kill, their all-time record. Rebellion didn't do well, right? Comparatively speaking, it was back to 2023 numbers. So Hard to Kill is like right around 60. I don't even remember what Rebellion was, but I think they probably did right around 10,000. So that's like a significant drop. But Slammiversary, the final estimation was 26,000, and that's right around what they were able to do when Kenny Omega came in for Rebellion and for Slammiversary. That's right around what those two events were doing back in 2021. And then they did it off the backs of their own talent. I know a lot of people want to give credit to NXT, and the NXT relationship is a part of that, but there were no talent from NXT featured on those stores and on those shows in a meaningful way. And at no point did NXT ever promote the pay-per-views, right? The only thing NXT did was showcase Jordan Grace, the Rascals, Rosemary, and Joe Hendry. That's it. They showcased those talents. Those talents were then able to bring a new audience over to TNA. TNA gets the credit for those numbers, okay? And then as well as the Hardy Boys getting hot. So we got 26,000 for Slammiversary, and then we go to Bound for Glory. We don't have an update this week on Bound for Glory because Dave Meltzer was here in Hawaii, and brother comes to Hawaii, spends a week, and I don't see the guy. Turns out he has no idea who I am. Although I am a Hall of Fame voter, and I personally got Bobby Davis elected to the Hall of Fame. Anyway, I digress. But Bound for Glory is on track to surpass Slammiversary. Bound for Glory is on track to hit around 30,000. That's huge. So now we have 3 meaningful metrics to show that TNA is doing something right, despite all of my complaints and criticisms about how boring the creative is. They're doing something right, and I think that they should be applauded. And because they're doing something right, because the ratings are up, because the ticket sales are up, and because the pay-per-view numbers are up, They have decided to then go ahead and take a chance with two huge events in Texas coming up in January. TNA Genesis, and of course, going live on Impact for the first time in 8 years. For the first time in 8 years, which is pretty big deal. Hold on. So yeah, if you go to the Jedi Goodman's page and you do a search for TNA, which I believe I did yesterday. So on November 8th, he posted, so that would have been the November 7th episode, 85,000, which we talked about here. And then it would have been 2 weeks before that, Impact had 97,000. So for the October 24th episode. So he does a good job of tracking all the TNA numbers that are out there. The 108 number, I just don't know where it's coming from. So okay. So let's get back to Genesis. Dobby the Brain Heenan, legend of all legends, has done the numbers for TNA Genesis. I have not gotten an update on TNA Impact Live in San Antonio, but we'll just talk about Genesis. Right now, floor seats for Genesis are at about close to 70% sold. And based on Dobby's estimations, we're looking at 2,500 to 3,000 seat setup for Genesis. Now, again, that could flex to the left or to the right. So that could flex to the left or the right. So I don't know we won't know exactly how many people are going to be there. We will probably get some type of estimated number. I think somebody will probably give Dave a number and he'll run with it. But that's what it's looking at. We got 275 floor seats sold out of 400 total, with 125 remaining. Those are going to sell out. And those are being sold at a really high price. Like the front row, I think, was like, hey, Billy, you're in the chat. Front row was like $500 or $600, right? And then I think to get a few rows back, you're looking at like 700. So this Genesis is on track to beat the gate at Bound for Glory based on ticket prices. Now the general admission price is $25. And I get the feeling they'll do something for like military to fill up the rest of it. But they got the momentum, and I think Genesis could end up being huge. I really do. Genesis could be really huge. And Io says, you said it best, Mike, last week. TNA fans will find money to spend. Yeah. They will go donate blood. They will go to, they'll go donate sperm. They will pick up second jobs. They will figure it out, but they're going to get to Texas and they're going to buy those front row seats. Yeah. And Billy has confirmed that, yes, they were $600. So, but yeah, a lot of good stuff is going on in TNA. Like I said, in spite of my criticisms, there's something happening with this company, and I think they should be applauded for it. And you know what? And let me see, Rovert, our buddy Rovert, tweeted this to me yesterday. He watches the show, so give a shout out to Rovert. He has not been kind to TNA in the past, but even he is acknowledging that something's going on here. And he sent this to me, and I think this is from ProWrestling.net. And I don't know if Jason Powell wrote this or not, although he did link it. I just never clicked on the link. It's neither here nor there. But this was, I believe this was a review of AEW's Dynamite. And in the review, he says it was a harmless and logically booked wrestling show. He goes, I'd recommend maybe squeezing in TNA into your pro wrestling rotation, especially if you're frustrated by AEW's erratic storytelling and lack of quality control. What is hurting TNA right now is they're in the middle of an extended build to one of their semi-canon TNA Plus shows, which always mucks up their storytelling. I expect to get back to prime form once they start building towards Genesis. Hopefully, they don't have a long layoff before pay-per-view because that screwed up last year's Hard to Kill show. Okay. This actually might have been. This might have been. No, this was definitely the TNA Impact review. Okay, so I had that wrong. It was the TNA Impact review, but even he's like recommending it to AEW fans who are kind of getting disaffected with what's going on in AEW. AEW right now can be a bit frustrating, I would say. And I don't want to bash another show while I'm reviewing this show, but look, I watch that show every week, and like it has been frustrating. It has been a frustrating watch for a while. TNA is always mostly consistent. A lot of times it's unspectacular, but mostly pretty consistent. And right now they're doing some pretty interesting things with a few of their characters, but they do a lot of starts and stops. And I have that same criticism for AEW. A lot of start and stop pushes, a lot of start and stop stories, right? They start them and then they just quit them out of nowhere.